Okay, what's going on, boys? No guys here. Welcome back to the video. Now, today's video we're going to go over new gen versus old gen. Is there actually a difference in both new gen and old gen? And is there, apart from a graphical change, is the gameplay actually different? Because this year is a bit different. I'm also going to explain to you not only the differences between them, but some hard shocking truths that some of you may be genuinely surprised between old gen and new gen. So just to give you a bit of an example, so I play predominantly most of the time new gen. And the reason for that simply just lies because there's a lot of new changes, and eventually, let's say long term, there's a high chance that old gen won't exist. Let's say eventually in the future. Now, is there much of a difference as you think? No. If we go over here to the deep dive from EA, there's some new things. Everything that's marked as NG means new generation. You got the whole lengthy argument. But the most important thing I would say is let's just put this into simple mechanics. There's three things that's different. Number one is the machine learning jockeying, and that kind of coincides with defensive awareness, the most important thing for defensive players on new gen, because if you have a player that's got bad defensive awareness, you can't jockey as quick with them. That's number one. Number two is the animations themselves. The animations themselves, they are different between old gen and new gen. They appear different. And of course, that coincides with less stick dribbling. So if you're talking about less stick dribbling, if you go into, let's say we go into the arena. And again, these are just the major differences. Let's say we go over here to gameplay modes and we go into just the practice arena. If you're on new gen, you'll have the new left stick dribbling. So if you play old gen, like have a look how I spin my left analog stick, just rotate it in a circle. I'm just spamming in a circle. You see that? So no actual intention of actually dribbling. That is what it looks like on new gen. In contrast, if I now change to old gen, you're going to see less dribbling being a much more smoother. It's in fact why I played old gen a lot more last year, is because I like less dribbling. So less dribbling on old gen is much better, but also I find that there's less. How can I say this? There is not delay, but because of the way less dribbling is, people are under the assumption that less dribbling is better in old gen, therefore everything else must be better. And then the final thing is this whole lengthy argument, and then there's a few things here and there, like, you know, hyper motion. That again comes with the animations, and then you have the accelerate thing, and then you have composed ball striking. But apart from that, the gameplays are very much identical, and it's shocking because people always think, oh look, if I'm an old gen player, if I go to new gen, will I be different? No, if you give a rank 1 player on old gen, you go to new gen, they will still be a rank 1 player. This is not even the same player by. This is Ronaldo. To be a bit more specific, you'll be using Mbappe. But even if I go like this in a circle motion, you see how the left analog stick, it's completely different. I'm moving at the exact same speed, and you see how even with Ronaldo, who's got bad balance, look how easy it is to dribble for me on old gen with the exact same left analog stick movement as opposed to new gen. So that is the big differences. Now, the way that I teach FIFA, the way that I teach it, what you learn, this is from my Patreon. In fact, these videos that you're going to see now on my Patreon as well, both of these are just purely dependent on new gen, old gen. So I'll show you what I mean. So have a look, for example, like here. So this is what I teach. So if you look over here on new gen, we're going to play this in 2x speed, right? The basics of football never change. It's just the thing like that lengthy. Now, lengthy, I put this on 2x speed. Is lengthy as big of a difference as people make it out to be? I think there is a difference, but it's not as significant as what people think. Personally, for me, I have all my strikers on lengthy if I had the choice, and that is it. The rest of my players are going to be on Shadow or on Hunter, because at the end of the day, I don't care about acceleration when sprint speed in some situations, or most situations, is going to trump acceleration. It's only when you have that longer distance to run into where the accelerate really kicks in with lengthy, and that is, for example, again, it's not even tested completely. So that is where the distance really does take into account, and that's why if you're running it behind, maybe with the striker, you may prefer lengthy. But you can see the gameplay, the free kicks, the way everything is. Even look at the way that I'm building up. It's the exact same thing. You know, you can see here, look, I do a lob pass, do a pass normally. I do a pass back there, do a 1-2, I do a through ball. I bring the ball back in. Less dribbling's a bit different, but you can see here, I should have shot, I should have scored there. If we go look at this now in old gen, apart from the graphical changes, It's the exact same way that I play. You know, people think, do I play differently? No, I don't. This is the hard truth you have to understand. It's the exact same game. The mechanics are the same. There's a few things that are different. And of course, this year it's a bit more different with the accelerate and everything. But it's similar than you think. It's the same when we delve into tactics, which we'll go into in a second. But have a look, for example, look at this gameplay. You can see how I'm doing the exact same thing. This is the way that I teach FIFA, the core basics. You can see, look, basic, talking about here, 1-2s, left stick dribbling. You can see the exact same way. And you can see, look, I'm dribbling here on old gen. I'm much better at dribbling. You see that? Let me just go back there. You see that there? Just there. Let's go back now. This is the difference between old gen and new gen. You can see the rest of the gameplay is exactly the same. But have a look, for example, when I get the ball inside the box here. See that left stick dribbling? That is the real difference between old gen and new gen. And that's why defensive awareness is probably the most... That's why players like Park Ji-sung, players like Perisic, all these new players inside the game, they are much better they are much better, I would say, on new gen than old gen, because old gen kind of favors the high agility and balanced players. But the gameplay itself, it doesn't change. It's only the way you defend with the run and jockey. Now you should basically be using the run and jockey and then the run button independently with the player. If you're part of my Patreon series, I've got a video on that where I explain that in more detail. Patreon.com/no guys, you don't get better. But that is the general gist in terms of that. But what about tactics? Because everyone always goes, okay, fine, we understand. Like, now you showed us some footage. Okay, that's all fine and dandy. But what about tactics themselves? Now, tactics itself, it doesn't really matter as much as you think, again. And that's why my weekly tactics, I mentioned it briefly, and that is about it. So let me just quickly just turn this off 1 second. Let me just turn this off so you can see now. We are on old gen, okay? Now, of course, someone who's on Lentheon Architect won't work anymore, okay? But let's just say we just go to my squad here. My main squad, should I say. And let's say we're on like this, right? Let's say for tactics itself, okay? So in terms of specific tactics, maybe on new gen, you can get away with... So what it was last year is that you kind of want higher depth on new gen. That's because of the anti-drop back system. This year, it kind of depends on the formation, but as a general rule of thumb, you want a bit more of a narrow width on old gen. Simply because of left stick dribbling and how effective it is. It's easier for you to get killed in the middle as opposed to the wider areas on new gen. That's just something that I go for, okay? The second thing is the constant pressure. It's less effective on old gen because left stick dribbling is much more better. And then the build-up play, forward runs for me appears to be more effective. Although I do use both, forward runs appears to be more effective on new gen. As opposed to, on old gen as opposed to new gen. I use both, and to be honest, this year I still use forward runs a bit more on new gen. I'm probably like one of the few people that does that. But to be honest, every time I release a tactics video, it seems to be working for all of you guys. And many of you guys tell me I prefer forward runs over direct passing. Because it's much more attacking. So that is the main differences. Apart from that, I'll maybe go a bit more narrow width. But if I release my tactics, if I don't say anything, don't think there's like some hidden meaning behind it. There's literally no changes. If you really want to, just drop the width back by 10 or 15. That's what I would say. You can maybe go to more of a balanced defensive style just because of how pressure is effective, but not as effective as new gen. That's the key. It's the extent of how effective it is. Still is effective on both, and maybe forward runs. And that is the difference between tactics itself. But in terms of actual gameplay, the core mechanics are the same. The question is, so why do you think the gameplay is different? It's because new gen is a bit more slower. The animations are slower, and also lesser dribbling is different. When lesser dribbling is different, it changes the gameplay completely. And that's the key difference. The gameplay is slower on old gen. If it was up to me, I prefer the more arcadey version of old gen. I think that all the old school pros prefer old gen. But realistically, it's going to cease to exist one day in the future. So that is why I'm on new gen now. And that's why most of my videos now are made on new gen. That's why I play it. But if you're asking me personally, I prefer old gen. I'm an old school FIFA player. I'm sure many of you guys are as well. It's much more quicker, more responsive, better less at dribbling. But apart from that, will you become a rank 1 player in old gen and a rank 5 player on new gen? Unless your left stick dribbling solely depended on it, it might make you a rank 2 player or rank 3, but it's never going to have that much discrepancy than what people think. So I know people make a tactics video for old gen and new gen. if I really want to do it for views, I probably would do it, but I'm not going to waste my time. It's going to be the same tactics for both. Gameplay's the same. Learn the basics. The basics are the same for both. Just remember that. And guys, thanks for watching. Take it easy. And of course, I'll catch you next time. Peace out.